all in me already. So I turned my head again back to the 1 o'clock to where I'm looking, and the next shot I heard ripped through my throat. So I'm on the ground, my life's pouring out, and I hear this: John, get up or your wife is gonna die. It was easier to stay on the ground rather than get up and be resilient. I hear it again: John, get up or your wife is gonna die.
And I'm like, okay, this kid sees, at the time Major Miller standing there. He's going to come to my help he's going to come to our office for help or protection. And he ran up, point blank and whipped out the gun and shot me point blank in the stomach. And I was just like, what the heck? And it was either the last round his mag or his weapon jammed or something. Because after he shot me, I'm looking at him and he's like fumbling around trying to reload and mess with it. And John, I look at his face, right? And there's one word that comes to mind, just looking at him, and that's hate.
Well, friends, welcome to season 2 of the Life Transformed podcast. I'm John Arroyo, and today we have a tremendous opportunity. I got one of my best friends. He's another survivor. I call him my best friend because, man, when you go through some stuff, your heart gets knitted with people. And so this brother, our hearts are knitted like no other. And we have a big thing to share with you. Our lives, we've experienced some tremendous trauma. And, but we've also experienced some tremendous breakthrough, and we're going to share that with you. So I'm not going to delay this because you guys need to meet my friend, Colonel Patrick Miller. Sir, welcome to a Life Transformed podcast. Man, you and I, we were both shot April 2nd of 2014 at Fort Hood. This is the 11-year anniversary. And sir, welcome. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking your time. I know that you're a father of 2. You're a hero to that wife, that stood by your side, just like my wife. But sir, thank you so much. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, John, hey, it's good to see you, my brother. Good to hear your voice. Good to appreciate the opportunity and to share at this time of year as we approach the anniversary, 11 years, to be able to share it with you and to be able to talk with you. It's an honor.
So the listeners know, where are you? What are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, so still active. I'll be active duty Army 22 years in May. And I'm currently stationed at the Defense Health Headquarters at the Army Office of the Surgeon General here in Falls Church, Virginia.
Oh wow! Okay, damn, you're up at the flagpole. Yeah, you're up at the flagpole. I remember that life. Yeah, so I was a general's aide after I was shot. So I remember all that. I remember my boss going to Falls Church quite often. So
Jimmy Keenan.
That's right. Yeah. No, I worked for Steve. Oh my goodness, what was his name now? He was the AMED Center and School commander. Mm-hmm. Steve Jones. Major General Steve Jones. Yep. Yeah, he was a doc. But it was really good. God taught me a lot in that opportunity. He actually taught me how to serve. And he actually, I'll tell you this. So I thought because after we had been shot out, we had a story, right? Like we both had a story of what happened to us, and we'll get into it here in the next few minutes. But I thought it was like, oh, God's giving me an opportunity. He's giving me a platform, and it's going to be about telling my story. And he's putting me next to this general so that I can, it's just a platform for me. Mm-hmm. It actually wasn't. It was a platform to be able to be humbled so that when the cameras went on and the lights were on, it wasn't about me. It was about, the Lord taught me how to serve others during that time. And he used Major General Steve Jones to do it. And I only had the use of one arm. I had to carry that guy's sodas around. I had to make sure that his life was better, was good. And, it doesn't matter whether you're a wounded warrior or not, this because for being a senior leader, being an 06 full bird colonel, you put the boss in the wrong uniform, in the wrong office, in the wrong meeting at the wrong time. That will only happen one time. I could have easily went from being the aide de camp to the driver in 30 seconds.
We have an active shooter currently on Fort Hood. We have multiple gunshot victims.
Todd, we are learned Fort Hood official has confirmed 4 people are dead, including the shooter, and another 14 are injured and have been taken to area hospitals for treatment.
In just 15 minutes, at least 16 injured and 4 dead, including the gunman. The shooter, a U.S. soldier, a combat veteran.
We have confirmed that there are 3 victims who were killed, and then the shooter was killed. And there are 16 injured, being treated at Scott and White and here at Darnell.
April 2nd, 2014. It's the infamous day. This right now is this recording. Everyone's going to see it on April 2nd. It's going to be the 11-year anniversary, 4:00 in the afternoon, sir. I pull up to the brigade headquarters, 1st Medical Brigade. I'm getting out of my car. I hear shots fired. I turn my attention to where I heard the shots fired. A car pulls up in front of me. I see the car, see the individual. I didn't think that I was in danger. I don't think anybody does, especially on base. You know, right when we went to work that morning, we had somebody with a badge and a gun check our ID, and we were behind them like we were safe. You know, we're both combat veterans. You know, I was a former Green Beret. We don't think that Fort Hood is a place that we're going to be injured, especially when we've been to Afghanistan and Iraq and we've done all the things. So I turned my attention away from the shooter or away from the vehicle. And the next shot I heard, I was hit. We both were shot with a 45 that day from Ivan Lopez, who was an E4, was on a shooting spree. I was victim 16 out of 19. You were victim 19. And then Ivan Lopez took his life. And, you know, sir, I don't actually share this a lot with people. I've never shared it with someone else that lived it because everybody has to deal with it their own way. But I also believe that there were 20 victims that day. And so there were 19 of us shot, 19, right? 3 died, but Ivan Lopez's family became victim number 20. Like his kids and his wife have to live with what happened that day. And I remember like later on seeing cameras stuck in her face and things like that. And maybe for some people they were like, yeah, she deserves that. But I don't think his family and his wife deserved any of that. They didn't ask for it. Yep. Whatever happened, there was a broken situation. And so, I just pray one day that we can say to her, we forgive you. We don't hold anything against you. You didn't shoot us. And so I just feel like they're victims too. Okay, sir. So I encountered Ivan Lopez twice. The second time I encountered him, God blinded him. And when he blinded him from seeing me, he didn't blind him like physically, but he had blinded him from seeing me. Ivan Lopez had walked into the brigade and I moved away from him. They get me to the hospital. But as I'm moving towards help towards one of the battalions, I could hear him shooting, and he's shooting in the brigade where you're at. Sir, tell us what happened on April 2nd of 2014.
Yeah, it's again, every time I hear you just tell your testimony, it just shakes me to my core, man. Again, we talk to people, we share the story, but when you're talking to somebody who lived it in real time, you know, it's I don't know, it was powerful, and I share your feelings for his family. Again, they didn't ask for that. They got to live the rest of their lives knowing that, you know, their dad was a monster or their husband did this, and it's not fair to them. And I love how you said you forgive them, because you know, I do as well, and I think that's powerful too. So yeah, Sunday, April 2nd, it was as you recall, it was a Wednesday. It was a regular Wednesday. We had stuff going on in the brigade, a TalkX going on, so not a lot of folks in the brigade. I was the Brigade 8 on the brigade staff that day in my office, which was one of 3 individual offices inside the Brigade S4 shop, which housed like 12 to 14 soldiers or something. And we didn't hear the gunshots outside. We were all just hanging out, like you said, 1600 late in the day. And all of a sudden you hear, you know, pop, 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 like 6, 7 gunshots. And that's when, after he had shot you, moved inside. That's where he opened up on staff duty and, killed Sergeant Lizini Rodriguez and the runner. And those were the shots that we heard. So immediately it was like everybody just stops for, what was that? Starts processing fight or flight. You see, or you hear people, ask, what was that? People running down the hallway, the hallway that splits the offices down the brigade. You hear doors slamming, and then it goes quiet. Silence. And like you said, fight or flight. I wasn't really thinking, but immediately got out of my office, ran through Brigade S4, and was like, "Everybody get down! Lock the doors, hide." And I went out in the hallway where the gunshots were coming from. Again, not thinking, more so reacting, I guess. And I was kind of like, halfway in and out of the door, looking down the hallway towards staff duty, and about 25, 30 feet away was this soldier, this the specialist, this E4. Just kind of walking down the hall, 1,000-yard stare, just kind of, and I looked at him and I was like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, get out of the hallway, get in S3 or something. And he looks at me and he starts running towards me. And immediately I'm thinking, okay. And everything I'm telling you took place in like 2 seconds, like 3 seconds, like
right.
But you remember kind of how your mind was processing. And I'm like, okay, this kid sees, at the time Major Miller is standing there. He's going to come to my help he's going to come to our office for help or protection. And he ran up, point blank and whipped out the gun and shot me point blank in the stomach. And I was just like, what the heck? And the point that might get lost in it all, or that, it's tough to say out loud. But it was either the last round in his mag or his weapon jammed or something. Because after he shot me, I'm looking at him and he's like fumbling around trying to reload and mess with it. And John, I look at his face, right? And there's one word that comes to mind, just looking at him, and that's hate. And that straight out of a movie. It's terrifying. Like, this guy wanted to kill me, and whoever, you know what I mean. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. It's like, I didn't do anything to you. We're wearing the same uniform with the same American flag on the right shoulder. It was just, it still is tough to process. But so after that, I kind of, like I said, in the doorway, just kind of like push him in the shoulder, shut and lock the door, calling 911 in one hand, and putting pressure on it with the other, right here, no exit wound. Ran through the Brigade S4 office, grabbed the folks that were like under their desks and their cubicles, and went into my office. So we were behind 2 closed locked doors. And long story short, well, I guess allegedly he took like 1 or 2 more shots through the door, they said, and missed. And then he went outside that far side exit across the street where he was confronted by the MP and ultimately committed suicide. But yeah, that was for 45 minutes of sitting in the office. They couldn't send anybody in, like SWAT or the MPs, because they were still cordoning the area. You hear the sirens going on. This is Fort Hood, right? So they had gone through this 4.5 years prior with Hassan. And so there was a large, presence out there. And it finally got to the point where we had to, like, I couldn't just sit here and bleed in this office. I remember.
Was anybody there in your office with you? Was anybody in? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So was anybody helping you?
Like,
was there anybody like trying to help you on the ground?
1,000%. It was at the time, Major Marilyn Ofield, and at the time, First Lieutenant Jasmine Torrance, and she's Jasmine Marshall now. And again, both godsends, right? So we're all trying to keep each other like calm, like trying to get accountability, figure out what's going on. I'm sitting there, I'm lightheaded, trying to like make jokes, you know what I mean? Like, we're all trying to keep it light without knowing like what's going on. And I'm bleeding, and I'm like, I remember thinking, I'm not like coughing up blood or choking up blood. I can control my breathing. I'm cognizant of the situation, like what's going on. I'm gonna live. Like, I'm gonna live, but I need to get out of this office. I need to get to the hospital. Like, we're all trained to some degree, medical or not, combat lifesaver. Like, you get hit somewhere, non-arterial. You tourniquet, put pressure, stop the bleeding. Get to the doc, and but when you're hitting the trunk, like in the core, right, with no exit wound, I thought I was gonna die. I absolutely thought I was gonna bleed out, and lots going through your head at the time. But yeah, ended up. Just long story short, I ended up crawling out the window, linking up with the MPs that were at the intersection there, 72nd and Support, and young PFC Maldonado, 19-year-old kid, man. Still talk to him to this day. You know, he held me in the back of the truck. He's with me. Hey, what's your name, sir? What's your wife's name? You know, it's gonna be okay. Like, just utter, bravery. And he admitted later, obviously, he was like scared to death and, shaken, but like he was just so calm and cool. And I love that guy. Like, I'll forever remember that. And I remember going to the hospital and, in there, and all the 3 Corps staff is in there, Millie's in there. And so I mean, they're all looking, triaging, and it's a Moscow. And because you went to Scott and White, right? You got,
well, and initially I went to Darnell, and then they stabilized me and realized that I had to go to the level 1 trauma center. 4 of us, I think, got sent out.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, and anyways, we were talking, they, got our clothes off and stuff. And then I remember them wheeling me into surgery, and it was straight out of a movie where you're looking up and you see the lights on the ceiling kind of flash in front of you, and then the OR, and they're gearing up and they're getting ready, and the CNRA, the nurse anesthetist was talking to me. She's like, all right, you're gonna be okay. What your wife's number is this. We'll write it down, and all right, count to 10, and you're gonna be okay. And I just remember, John, and I haven't shared this with many people, but I took her hand, like I held her hand, and with both of my hands, and cupped her hand, and just looked at her and said, "Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do." Thinking those might be the last words I ever speak.
Right.
And I didn't want to say, like, tell my wife I love her, and because I didn't want to sound too fatalistic, and I believed that it was going to be okay because I was in good hands, good capable hands, and in God's hands ultimately. But that was the last thing I said before passing out. So yeah, the bullet went through my colon. Full transparency, went through my colon, fractured a rib, got stuck in my back, and missed heart, spine, spleen, left side, about like 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches, and yeah, it was, we all have our stories, and the story of recovery, it was obviously the hardest thing. We have our close calls downrange, in real life. I mean, growing up where you grew up out in California, and being in gangs and having, so many experiences, right, as a youth and adolescent, and then being deployed, and it's crazy. But yeah, it despite and a lot of setbacks, right? Like, had an ileostomy bag for 7 weeks, lost 30 pounds. Like, it was hard to walk, just all the midline incision.
How old were you when you were shot? How old were you about that time?
I was 32.
Okay.
32-year-old, young major, new major, for about a year or two. But yeah, it was just one of those things where you think of all the stuff that we've been through, all the crazy stuff we've done as kids, professionally in the military, close calls, seeing our friends, survive or, not make it home, and all the carnage that we've seen, and only to be shot at home, with a pen in our uniform in garrison. We don't have our weapon, we don't have our kit, we don't have our fire team. We're not expecting contact like you would in combat. Yeah. So,
our stories parallel so much because, like, you had people with you, they get you to the hospital, you have that young soldier, they put you in the back of a vehicle. I mean, that, as I'm listening, like, because I had never heard these details before. A lot of people ask me, like, hey, so do you stay in contact with all the people that were shot? I was like, we didn't know each other.
Right.
Like, this guy was on a shooting spree throughout the base, and like got in his vehicle and was driving around. Plus, I had only been on base. Yeah. And I had only been on Fort Hood for 5 months. I had 15 years on Bragg, 5 months on Hood, and or Fort Cavazos today. And so there, a lot of us didn't know each other. And then all of a sudden, we get farmed out to different medical units, like for myself, like I go to Scott and White. And so I recover out of San Antonio because I just needed more, just really like just traumatic surgeries that I had to walk through. Yeah. But, I was put in the back of a vehicle and they put me in the back of a truck. And I'm just so glad that we had people that like people weren't Silver Stars and Medal of Honors for, right? I mean, if we were in combat, some of our guys probably would have got some really high. I mean, granted, I know that they got the Soldier's Medal, but in combat, some of these guys would have got some really high recommendations, some really high honors, some really high awards, because they risked their lives. They kept us alive. And sir, this is why, again, just like you, I'm so glad that our soldiers are trained. I'm so glad that there's no time to read the book and say, well, let's see if I figured it out. Let's see if I paid attention during sergeant time training. Let's see if I paid attention. Like, it's either you know it or you don't in that moment. And everybody that you were placed in the hands of the people that they just executed. They just executed, and we're alive today because God has put us in hands of people that were willing to lay their lives down for their brothers, right? Willing to risk their lives, put us in the back of a vehicle, knew what to ask us, knew how to keep us alive, and then got us in the hands of the surgeons, the doctors, and everybody else.
John, have you seen the new sweatshirts?
Dude, I got to get a couple of these. These are amazing. How was your wife notified? I mean, how's that? And I know most people here, my commander, right, was trying to get accountability, but how was your wife notified?
She has her own story that she kind of keeps to herself, but it was she literally found out because I was trying to call her before the shooting all started. It was a Wednesday. We were making plan, dinner, a little movie. It was just the two of us, no kids. We have the dog, but and she wasn't answering because she was going to school. I think she was working on her bachelor's at the time, and so she was doing online schoolwork, and so she was ignoring my calls, right? So she was like,
that's why she doesn't say it.
Yeah. No, but in all honesty, so she called me back, didn't answer, called back, didn't answer, and she knows how to at least send a text or something. But and then she called again, and it was Major O'Field that answered the phone. It was a female answers the phone. She's like, "Oh, hi, Miss Ashley. This is Major O'Field. Your husband's been shot, but he was alive when they took him, or they took him to the hospital." And so that's the first thing she hears.
Like,
so
what?
like what? She turns on the TV or turns on the news or whatever, and CNN, whatever news station, the scroller and everything, shooting, Fort Hood, 4 dead.
Yeah. Breaking news.
Yep, exactly. So you can imagine. So she's like freaking out, calling mom, sister, coworker. She didn't know what to do, where to go. Like she never went on base before for anything. We lived out in like Harker Heights, clean there, like that way. And she never had to go on the base for anything. And she could, but she needed help. So one of her coworkers, Lee, last name escaped me, but picked her up and drove her because she was I think she was an active duty captain or major or dependent or something, but she had access to the post. And I guess trying to get on there was a show, right? Like everything was about that, yeah. Not like you and I were aware during all this, but I guess so everything was locked down in and out, so it took a while for them to finally get there and then get to the hospital and try to find out where it was. And by the time she got there, I was out of my first surgery or just getting out of the first surgery. And so I know you'll appreciate this, right? She all night, and I wish I had that. I get a picture I can send you later. Prayed all night, sat in my bed, wrote down scriptures and saw all night, and hung them up over the bed. And again, this isn't something that I share, and I know she wouldn't mind me sharing, but talking to you and we're sharing our story, and you're an ultimate man of faith. But it was powerful. I mean, God is real, absolutely real. And,
I'm squirming in my seat as you're saying all this, so go ahead. Yeah,
I'm not fibbing whatsoever. She really did that, and she'll tell you. And the visitors started coming the next morning, and they're getting ready to wheel me in for my second surgery. And I do remember this part. I remember her, Ashley, on one side, who had been there all night, praying literally. On the other side was, the 3 Corps commander at the time, then Lieutenant General Mark Milley, right? So we had Milley, and then he had Providence, Brigadier General retired Burt Providence, who was Colonel, our brigade commander.
Yeah, the brigade commander.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you had Milley and Providence on one side, you had my wife Ashley on the other side, and they're talking to each other, and they're talking to me, and I remember looking at them, and I was high as a kite, right? But I remember I wanted to talk to them, I wanted to speak to them. I wanted to communicate. Like, these are 2 giant legends in my eyes, real life superheroes, and my wife, who is my, real life super. And I wanted to interact, but I couldn't because I was intubated. I had a tube down my throat. I remember trying to speak and nothing would come out. So I motioned to the nurse for a pen and paper, and I wrote down. I got a picture of this too. I get in our scrapbook, but it says, "Sir, let everybody know I'm going to be okay, and we're going to get through this together as a family/team." And I tell Bugs all the time that was just as true on that day, on April 3rd, right, 2014, as it is today. And we can talk about that all day as well, but we can't do it alone. So
that's it. Hey, sir. Well, I want to. You know what? I want to end this segment right on that, and I think that's it. This is. I mean, you said it. We're a team. We made it that day. 1, first of all, because of Jesus. 2, because he put us in the hands of the right people, because our medics, our soldiers, and just humans in humanity, right? Just people don't know what they're going to do until they actually take action in a situation like we were in. People don't actually know. You train, and you hope that you're going to respond that way. And, but some people you don't know. And so, we were placed in the hands of the right people. We had the right medics around us. We had the right doctors. We had the right commanders at the time. They took care of us. They absolutely loved us. Army medicine is number 1 in my heart. I mean, we're alive today because those doctors and nurses and medics, they knew what to do. They absolutely took care of our families. Yep. Our commanders, everyone just took care of our families. And sir, man, everything you just said is absolutely it. And so I'm going to end this segment on this because we're going to get into segment number 2. And I just want to tell all my friends to stick around because we're going to be talking. We're coming back with Colonel Patrick Miller, and we're going to be talking about what recovery looked like. And so, sir, stick around. We're going to pull you out, and people are going to hear from you once again. But thank you for sharing your tremendous story of what happened April 2nd, 2014, when Specialist Ivan Lopez shot 19 of us. Today we're alive, and today you're sharing hope. Right now, you just left a big nugget for the rest of us. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir. We got a lot more left to do.
Well, friends, this is a wrap up to session 1 with Colonel Patrick Miller talking about the events that happened on April 2nd of 2014. As he just said, we're a team, and we're going to heal, and we're going to make it, and we're going to do it together. Friends, that's what I want to leave you with. I don't think I could have said it. I could have said anything any better than what Colonel Miller just said. And so stay tuned. Session 2 is going to be coming at you, and we're going to let you know what recovery looked like. All right. I'm going to talk to you soon. John Arroyo with the Life Transformed Podcast. I'll see you soon.